Normally, when I do these recap and results, I like to go through the whole card and talk about each fight individually. Honestly, this is being dead honest with you people. This is my seventh time trying to do this video. This is my seventh time trying to really recap the results of the show, but I just can't. I honestly can't sit here and try to recap the show with what I just witnessed. I can tell you what I thought about some of the fights. I felt Dustin Poirier looked impressive here tonight, and I felt that he is moving up the ranks of the featherweight division. Diego Brandao still has a lot to learn. I felt Jim Miller impressed me with his game on the ground. I really liked his back work, and I really liked the submission attempt that he did on Camões, Fabricio Camões, I believe that's his last name. I really did. I really was impressed by Travis Brown, and I really did enjoy that we have a new heavyweight rising up in the heavyweight division, and him versus Verdum is going to be an awesome fucking fight. Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate is one of my favorite women's fights, if not my favorite women's fight that I've seen, next to her versus Tate versus Kat Zagano. Great fight, great win by the champion Ronda Rousey. And for people who are upset about that handshake, I'm not really going to go ranting into it right now because I'm not in the mood to rant about anything. And then we get to the main event, Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva. Me being a Silva fan, I'm not like most Silva fans who think he's invincible. Yeah, I get cocky when I pick Anderson Silva. I ain't gonna deny that. That's the truth because I've seen him dominate for so many years. How can I not be cocky when choosing the Spider? But Chris Weidman looked great in this fight. He's the middleweight champion. I don't care what anyone says, what happened. You know, another fluke win for Weidman. No, to me, Chris Weidman won this fight based off skill and technique, and that's the bottom line. But Anderson Silva, what I witnessed was probably one of the worst injuries I've seen next to Sean Livingston's ACL tear in the NBA. I suggest you never watch any of those videos because they are not fun videos to watch, or even the recent one with the Louisville kid. I believe the kid from Louisville, Kevin Ware, I believe. Not 100% sure if I got his name right, but just a nasty, nasty injury, an injury that I don't think people should make fun of all that much. But if you want to, it's your own right, it's your own sense of humor. I'm not going to judge anyone based off their sense of humor. What I really want to talk about is Anderson's career and why I became such a fan of the Spider and how much happiness that Anderson Silva brought and how much great memories he's brought into my life. I remember I was a Rich Franklin fan. Yes, I'm a Rich Franklin fan first and foremost, people. He's my favorite fighter of all time. Deal with it. And when he first fought Anderson Silva, the only thing I saw about Silva was that Chris Lieben fight. I didn't really watch Silva much in Pride. I only cared about Pride if the big names were fighting. That's how I was when I was a little kid. I didn't give a fuck about any of these smaller name guys. I only cared about the big name guys like the Rampagers, the Ronderlos, the Shogun Huas, and everyone else in the world from Mirko Kokop to Fedor Emelianenko. I only cared about those fights. And I thought Rich Franklin was going to beat Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva beat Rich Franklin. Just remember, I was a little kid when all this was happening. Anderson Silva, Rich Franklin too. I wanted Silva to lose so bad. I remember after he beat Rich Franklin again, I kind of gained respect from Anderson Silva because let's face it, guys, when I was watching Rich Franklin was on a tear. He was like undefeated. I thought he was one of the greatest guys around in mixed martial arts. And when Anderson Silva beat him, at that time Chuck Liddell was a big name. There's other more interesting characters like Tim Sylvia. Randy Couture just came back and freaking beat Tim Sylvia. Anderson Silva kind of, to me, he earned my respect. I kind of said, you know what, why do I hate this guy? This guy's obviously good. I'm not going to hate him as much. And throughout time, I just grew to respect Anderson Silva more and more as a fighter, and that's what made him a fan for me. I remember watching that Travis Lutter fight, and when Silva got him into that triangle choke and started hitting the elbows and did that scream, I just said, dude, I gotta support this guy. This guy's a badass. And just remember, I was a little kid when all this was happening, so anyone who was winning, I liked. Anyone who was losing, yeah. Rich Franklin, I didn't care if he lose. He was my favorite of all time, but Anderson Silva, when I just saw that, I just remember I grew so much respect for him. And just over time, I remember, Anderson Silva, I was just like, he's the greatest of all time. Everyone at that moment was really high on GSP, high on the Georgia St. Pierre, but I was the Anderson Silva guy. I was the only one who really loved Anderson Silva. I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember I would argue with GSP fans, and yeah, there was times where Silva would be a dick against Patrick Cote, against Talos Latis, and especially against Damian Maya. But then there was brilliance when he fought Dan Henderson, Forrest Griffin, and I just remember all the great moments that he brought when I would have friends over to watch fight parties. I remember Silva versus Sonnen 2, Sonnen 1, I mean. The first time, everyone was choosing Chael. I was choosing Anderson. And the thing is, a lot of people don't know this story because I've never shared this story, but I remember after the X Games in Los Angeles, I went to the X Games. I met Anderson Silva. I met the Spider. Big dude, awesome, very nice to me. And I said, I'm cheering you on against Chael. And he was an awesome guy. He was very patient. My camera had no batteries, and I was trying to get a picture with him. I was trying to get a picture with Anderson Silva, and he was just standing there being patient, being nice. And I said, I have no picture. I can't get pictures. I'm sorry, man, for wasting your time. And he said, no problem. Ain't no problem. He just said no problem. And, he didn't care. And, he just shook my hand, went our separate ways. And I remember that was just an awesome moment for me, meeting one of my favorites weeks before he was supposed to fight Chael Sonnen in one of the biggest fights of his career. This was a huge fight for Anderson Silva, and I just remember that moment in the 5th round when it looked like it was over. Anderson Silva was going to lose, and then all of a sudden he puts in that vicious triangle choke. I remember everyone was like, "Oh my God!" At my house, we were freaking out, and when Chael did that little flame thing, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he didn't tap out. That's not a tap." I was the only one going, "Yes, that's a tap. That's a tap." And I felt like I was public enemy number one in my own house. I felt I was public enemy number one in my own house because I was cheering for Silva. People were saying the tap was rigged and everything. But then all of a sudden we fast forward to February, Super Bowl card, Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. Remember having my friends in the room, and if my friends watch this video, I don't know if they watch my videos, but they remember they were sitting in my room, in my living room, and when Anderson Silva did that front kick to Vitor, everyone literally rises from their chairs. We're like, oh shit! We were freaking out. I remember that was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen, just the mixed martial arts and MMA, and just having people around me watching this moment. It was awesome. It was just freaking awesome. I was like, God, UFC, I forgot the number. It wasn't 117 was Chael. I can't remember that number. I think it's 126, I want to say. UFC 126 was Silva versus Vitor. But I remember watching that moment, how awesome it was. And then just every Anderson Silva fight, after every Anderson Silva fight, just being more amazed with this guy at his age, still doing this, still fighting like this. And said to myself, man, dude, this guy was invincible. And when he lost to Chris Weidman, I was upset. I ain't going to deny, but if you guys watch my recap and results video from then, I even said, go on Chris Weidman. He took advantage and all that other stuff. He's a champion now. And Chris Weidman is still the champion now. To me personally, after seeing this injury, I'm not going to lie, I broke down in tears. I was crying because Anderson Silva is one of my favorites. He's one of the guys that I can easily, grab my friends over, tell my friends, hey man, an Anderson Silva fight's happening. And everyone's like, yeah, Chase, we're going to come on over and watch that fight. Because I love MMA. Most of my friends, they're not huge MMA fans. They like it, but not that much. But Anderson Silva's that one guy I know that most of my friends, most people know who he is. And I can tell people, hey, man, this dude's a bad man. And he brought so much damn happiness to me as an MMA fan, just watching him dominate. And I say to myself, we had our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, our great-grandmothers watch Muhammad Ali. We had our moms and dads grow up with Mike Tyson. And the thing is, for us, as growing up, for me as a boxing fan, I didn't have those guys. Sure, there was the Roy Jones Jr.'s that would come every once in a while. Sure, we would get these great fighters that would come every once in a while. But Floyd Mayweather, yes, he has a freaking undefeated record. I love Floyd Mayweather. Don't get me wrong. I loved him when he fought Rios. But I think it was Rios. I can't remember. It's been a long time. 1998, man. Seriously. But I love Floyd Mayweather, but he was never as dominant as a Tyson or an Ali to the point where you just grew up and you just said, wow, he's amazing. And I feel sometimes us MMA fans, you're right to your own objective. You can hate Anderson Silva, you can love Anderson Silva, you can respect Anderson Silva, you can say whatever you want about Anderson Silva, but there's no denying that us MMA fans, we're kind of spoiled in a way that we got to see one of the greatest of all time fight in such a young sport, and we can be when MMA starts to grow bigger and bigger, we can be those guys that say, hey man, we watched Anderson Silva. When our kids or our grandkids are watching this sport we love and they see highlights, we can be those old guys in the chair being like, yep, that's Anderson Silva, greatest of all time. Hell, man, we are those guys. Most of us growing up watching this sport, we are lucky that we got to see Anderson the Spider Silva. And we can be like those bitter old men. You know, when people would say Tyson can beat Ali, we can be like those bitter old men, like, I don't think Tyson has what it takes to beat Ali. You know, we could be like those bitter old men. That's the fact. That is a damn fact. Anderson Silva, to me, is the greatest of all time. One of my favorites of all time. And someone who brought a lot of happiness to me as an MMA fan. Someone who got me excited for fights. It sucks how his career had ended. I don't want to see Anderson Silva fight again. I really don't, because I feel he has nothing left to prove in MMA. Chris Weidman's a new champ. Congratulations, Chris. You are awesome. Anderson Silva, though, man, I don't want to see him fight again. I really don't. I feel he's done it all. Sure, we're not going to get those super fights, but who cares? Honestly, who cares if we don't get those super fights? You know? I feel that the Spider, whether you loved him or hate him, you can't deny it. It was a fun ride with him in the UFC and MMA, and something we're going to miss in the UFC/MMA. I don't know what else to say, but comment down below your guys' favorite Anderson Silva moments. You can be funny and say, like, the Chris Weidman knockout was your favorite Anderson Silva moment because he finally lost in the UFC. That's fine. That's your own opinion. What are your thoughts about the Spider in general? To me, one of the most entertaining guys I ever got to watch, and I'm grateful and I'm blessed that I was able to say I witnessed one of the greatest of all time. Ain't no sunshine in this song. I love when I heard that music, and you would see him walk down to that ring. My favorite Anderson Silva moment would probably have to be, actually there's two. When he made Chael tap out just because that was for sentimental reasons, and when he made Dan Henderson tap out because Dan Henderson was dominating that first round. I was like, oh my God, Anderson Silva could actually lose a fight because at that point he was unbeatable. And then all of a sudden, he comes out and hits a sick rear naked choke, dominates the ground game, and beats Dan Henderson. The Vitor kick is on its own level of awesomeness. But to me, the two moments that I love are the Chael Sonnen submission and the Dan Henderson submission. Anyways, guys, I just want to say thank you to the Spider. Thank you to Anderson Silva for a great career in the UFC, great career in MMA, and just bringing me a lot of happiness in life. I hope he recovers well from this injury, and I hope he has a great life after mixed martial arts. I believe he will. One of the best of all time, guys. Whether you loved him or hate him, you can't deny that. Anyways, guys, I'm out of here. Hope you guys enjoy your Saturday night and get ready for some football tomorrow. Peace.